All right, finally back in the United States and back to reality as I've already had a 5 a.m. work shift and I'm beginning work on the new summer classes. Yay. Anyway, I thought the trip went great. It was a really awesome experience overall. Thought the meetings went very well and the city was very cool too. Some things that stuck out about our various meetings. One, I would say for the bigger organizations such as the EPL, NFL Europe, and La Liga was the different ways that they're trying to expand globally. For example, it seemed like the EPL already has a foothold as soccer is very, very popular internationally. It's kind of ingrained in multiple countries and multiple cultures. So for them, a little bit less of a leap to get it expanded. Also, they're very, very social media savvy, and they have a lot of partnerships internationally that kind of help them get televised and stay visible, as opposed to, say, the NFL, where it's heavily ingrained in American culture, but not so much in other cultures around the world. Granted, they have a little bit of experience and visibility in Europe, but it's not a sport that's played there consistently. So it's going to be interesting to see how a team might do in London when the locals don't really play. It's one thing to go there and do really, really well for a couple individual games a year, but it will be interesting to see if the locals really take interest in it when it's there year round. As far as the individuals we met, I found Ryan Fagan very impressive. I thought it was cool that he didn't have the traditional academic background, yet was still very driven, got very creative using his contacts and whatever experience he did have to kind of work his way up and make a name for himself. I liked Sam, the entrepreneur. I liked his idea for I Spy Sports. I think it's a good idea. Granted, the system that works in Europe is different than the United States, and the fact that they don't have colleges to recruit from. So many of them go to academies or they're individual athletes. They aren't quite as visible as, say, the Division I athletes or semi-pro athletes in the United States. So hopefully that works out for Sam. It seems like a good idea, and there could be some traction there. So we'll keep an eye out on that. Gary Maitland, the skills trainer, I thought he was cool. I like the idea of him using kind of evidence-based and looking deeper into skills. And he talked a lot about figuring out why things work and looking up evidence to kind of back up the methods he used. So I thought that was very cool and unique, and I like how he's kind of experimented with different marketing styles and price points to kind of figure out a system that works for him. And just to kind of be an individual and make a name for himself in the strength and conditioning world is difficult to do. So congratulations to him on that. I thought that was cool to meet him. Culturally, there was a lot there in London that I thought was very, very cool, particularly the very, very old buildings contrasted with the really new stuff, like, say, St. Paul's Cathedral and the Tower of London versus the Shard. I thought that was very neat. In a lot of other ways, being in London reminded me of when I lived in New York City. Even though New York City is much newer than London, the contrast of the old and new architecture, getting around in the tube, being heavily multicultural, having a lot of people around you speaking multiple languages, the sheer size and organization of the city seems similar. Piccadilly Circus versus Times Square, the multitude of restaurants, the area where you have plays, Chinatown, it all seemed very similar to New York. If there wasn't the major time difference, I may have even thought I was in New York City. So very cool, somewhat familiar, obviously. When we went to Paris for our free day, it felt a little bit more like I was in another country. Granted, there was still a lot of tourist and multiple languages being spoken, but overall, it seemed different. I think with the riverfront, the consistency of the architecture being different, the city seemed much older overall, and everything being at least written in a different language is very cool. So that was kind of cool to get out and experience that. I'd never been to Paris or London, but I think overall the trip was organized very well. I really enjoyed it. I learned a whole lot. It was really awesome, and I'd really love to go back to Europe and jump around a little bit and maybe experience some more countries and cities. So thanks a lot for putting everything together. It was a really good time, and we'll stay in touch.